of mice and mantis shrimp, strange sushi waits. Mantis shrimp strikes through ancient depths. Dreams mist fireworks fade. Dreams built on reclaimed land. The story of Tokyo Disney Resort. We keep moving forward, opening new doors and doing new things, because we're curious and curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. Ooh, Walt Disney. Somebody should have probably checked where Walt's proverbial new path was being paved. In the case of Tokyo Disneyland, it was less a path and more a man-made sandbar. This explains a lot. I'd always noticed something was different about the Japanese Disney parks. They are cleaner, the crowds are more orderly, and the popcorn comes in flavors like soy sauce and butter, which is a journey for the palate all its own. But the real difference isn't the snacks. It's the foundation of the whole enterprise, both literally and financially. It all started back in the 1960s with a Japanese real estate firm called the Oriental Land Company, or OLC. They had a BOLD idea to build a Disneyland in Japan. They also had a bold piece of property, a section of Tokyo Bay they were in the process of filling in. They approached Disney, who at the time was politely uninterested in building a fantasy land on what was geologically classified as damp. The idea lay dormant until 1974 when OLC, demonstrating a level of persistence usually reserved for particularly stubborn weeds, came knocking again. This time, a deal was struck. And here is where the story gets truly weird. The Walt Disney Company, a corporation known for wanting control over every last atom of its empire, agreed to a licensing deal. OLC would pay Disney for the use of its characters, designs, and brand. In return, OLC would own and operate the entire resort. Every brick, every yen, every sold-out Duffy the Disney Bear plush. Disney took on zero financial risk. OLC footed the entire bill for construction, a cost equivalent to building a small city from scratch. It was the greatest business deal in theme park history. Disney licensed out the goose that lays the golden eggs, and OLC got to build the goose a solid gold house and keep everything it laid. The decision to let someone else run the show was shocking, but their choice of location was downright mad. Building on reclaimed land is tricky. Building on reclaimed land in one of the most earthquake-prone nations on Earth is just asking for trouble. The primary danger is liquefaction, a charming phenomenon where a tremor can turn solid ground into something resembling a vat of boiling oatmeal. Your multi-million-dollar pirate ship ride could, in theory, just sort of ooze into the bay. To prevent Cinderella's castle from taking an unscheduled dive, Japanese engineers employed ground-fortifying techniques so extensive they probably could have supported a black hole. On the other hand, building on a featureless mudflat gives you a blank slate. There are no pesky historical buildings or pre-existing sewer lines to work around. You can design the perfect layout from scratch, which is exactly what they did. After years of construction and after sending 150 employees to California to learn the sacred arts of managing a Main Street parade, Tokyo Disneyland opened on a rainy April day in 1983. It was an immediate, runaway success. The park paid off its entire construction debt in 4 years, a feat unheard of in the industry. The success was so profound that OLC decided to double down. In 2001, right next door, they opened Tokyo DisneySea. If building a magic kingdom on a former seabed was bold, building a second park entirely themed to nautical exploration on that same spot was a magnificent multi-billion-dollar taunt to the god Neptune. Its ports of call are so stunning and immersive they make other theme parks look like county fairs. It cemented the resort's reputation for obsessive quality. This endless ambition continues with expansions themed to Frozen, Tangled, and Peter Pan, proving the original dream wasn't just to build a park, but to keep building it forever. New land from sea, a mouse's castle stands firm. The dream holds its ground. Sleeping in the magic. A look at Tokyo Disney's themed accommodations. A hotel is a place that keeps your belongings for you while you go out and have a good time. E.B. White. Knowing that Japan's Oriental Land Company built this entire resort on land it dredged from Tokyo Bay, it tracks that they didn't stop at just the theme parks. They weren't about to let you escape their perfectly engineered world just because the sun went down. No, they also control where you sleep, eat, and dream, all within a carefully managed ecosystem of themed lodging. Disney may have provided the famous mouse, but OLC built his house, his neighbor's house, and the monorail that connects them. The result is a hierarchy of hotels that is itself a marvel of marketing, a system where your budget determines your proximity to manufactured joy. It's an interesting paradox. To construct the most immersive American fantasy experience on the planet, you need a Japanese company with a fetish for logistical perfection. The crown jewel of this operation is the Hotel Miracosta. This isn't a hotel near the park, it's a hotel that is the park. Its walls form the picturesque Italian waterfront of Tokyo DisneySea. Guests in the right rooms can sip coffee on their balconies and watch thousands of visitors below, who in turn see the hotel as part of the scenery. You are paying a premium to become an extra in someone else's vacation photos, a kind of living, breathing part of the architecture. It is a work of breathtaking audacity. Right across the way, facing the other park, stands the Tokyo Disneyland Hotel. It's a grand Victorian confection that looks like it was designed by someone who thought Buckingham Palace wasn't quite ornate enough. It sits directly at the park's main gate, meaning your journey from bed to Main Street, USA, or World Bazaar, as it's called here, can be measured in seconds. A little farther out, connected by the resort's endlessly looping monorail, is the Art Deco-styled Disney Ambassador Hotel. It aims for 1930s Hollywood glamour, a time when a movie ticket cost a nickel and movie stars weren't yet required to have their own line of airport-friendly athleisure wear. And just recently they attached a whole new wing to the resort with the Fantasy Springs Hotel, a place so integrated into the newest section of DisneySea that you could probably fish in a magical lagoon from your window if security wasn't so attentive. But not everyone can afford to sleep inside an ersatz Italian port. For the rest of us, there are other rungs on the ladder. The Toy Story Hotel plunges you into a world where everything is built for a 6-year-old giant. The premise is that you have shrunk to the size of a toy, a clever concept that also makes you feel vaguely helpless as you stare up at a desk lamp the size of a small car. It's colorful and loud and feels like you're living inside a pinball machine. Go down another level and you find the Celebration Hotel, a more budget-conscious option located a shuttle bus ride away. It still offers Disney theming, mostly in the form of cheerful pictures on the wall, reminding you of the more expensive fun you could be having if you were staying closer. The real currency here isn't yen, it's access. Staying at any of these official properties grants you happy entry, the right to enter the parks a full 15 minutes before the general public. It's the theme park equivalent of a diplomatic passport. For a quarter of an hour, you are a god among mortals, strolling down an empty main street while thousands of poor, unfortunate souls press against the gates. It's a brilliant strategy. OLC isn't just selling a themed room and a comfortable bed. They're selling status and time, the two most valuable commodities on Earth. It's a masterclass in understanding what people truly want. The consumer is not a moron. She is your wife. David Ogilvy. Punching above their weight. The marvel that is the Mantis shrimp. The meticulously planned world of the Tokyo Disney Resort, where every sightline has been engineered for maximum delight, does not prepare you for wiener sushi. After leaving the hotel, our search for food led us to a small sushi place where tradition was clearly more of a suggestion than a rule. I did my duty and ordered a few classic plates, but my attention was captured by the menu's lunatic fringe. First came the Wiener sushi, which was precisely what it sounds like, a sliced hot dog on a pad of rice. This was followed by hamburger sushi, a creation that defied logic so thoroughly it had to be experienced. Finally, I ordered the Mantis shrimp. It had a strange, firm texture and a definite kick. It wasn't until later that I discovered what I had actually eaten. The Mantis shrimp, it turns out, is less a gentle sea creature and more of an underwater thermonuclear device with anger management issues. These animals, which aren't shrimp at all, have been around for 400 million years, giving them plenty of time to perfect the art of being nature's most overwrought killing machine. Their reputation is built on their claws, which come in two models, smasher and spearer. Spearers are boring. They just stab things. The smashers, however, are the true artists. A smasher's club accelerates so fast it is one of the quickest movements in the animal kingdom. The punch is so powerful it creates a shock wave. By boiling the water in front of it, meaning the shrimp can kill you with the aftershock even if it misses. Aquarists call them thumb splitters, and their tiny fists are made of a self-repairing organic ceramic that scientists are still trying to understand. And then there are the eyes. Humans have 3 color-receptive cones in our eyes. The mantis shrimp has 16. It can see colors we don't have words for, along with ultraviolet and polarized light. Their eyes move independently, like a chameleon that's had way too much coffee. They use this insane visual ability to send secret messages to each other using polarized light, signals that are completely invisible to predators or prey. They have a private encrypted communication channel. All this is to say, I ate a tiny Technicolor super soldier that sees in psychedelic math and punches with the force of a rifle bullet. It tasted okay. After dinner, we wandered past what must be the most unfortunately named waffle place in Asia, though you'd need a deep and abiding knowledge of tacky European tourist statuary to get the joke. We made it back to the hotel, and I was asleep in minutes. My wife insists a spectacular fireworks show happened just outside our window about 30 minutes later, a detail I completely missed. As a connoisseur of profound unconsciousness, I can only report that I heard nothing. I woke up at 3 in the morning, ready for a full day at Disney, where I hoped to find more oddities and maybe another fantastically named place to eat. That closes Chapter 4, a reminder that scientific discovery can be found in the most unexpected meals before the realities of a vacation schedule take over. Next time, we trade marine biology for meticulous logistics as a day at Tokyo DisneySea becomes an exercise in strategic planning and mobile app proficiency. If you enjoyed this journey, the complete travelogue is available right now as a Kindle book on Amazon, Shinkansen and Sensibility. And if you want to come behind the scenes, get bonus content, you can join my community on Patreon. Until our next chapter, thanks for listening to The Rise the Limit. Continuing our journey on The Rise the Limit, we enter Chapter 5, By App and Appetite Alone. After a night of contemplating marine biology, the family now faces Tokyo DisneySea, where success is defined by quick fingers on the park's mobile app and a strategic hunt for distinctive snacks. Let's follow their meticulously planned day, from securing digital passes for popular rides to sampling curry-flavored popcorn between attractions. By App and Appetite Alone. Digital gates yield to weary pilgrims seeking joy. Dreams fade with twilight. Smooth sailing, navigating bag restrictions at Tokyo DisneySea. What does it take to conquer the happiest place on earth? Is it boundless optimism, a childlike sense of wonder, or a credit card with no discernible limit? Number. It's a deep and abiding knowledge of municipal-level regulations and a willingness to get up at an hour normally reserved for bakers and international criminals. Our grand Disney day, a saga that began in the pre-dawn quiet, saw us perched on the cold ground outside the gates of Tokyo DisneySea by 7:45. We were among the ELECT, the chosen few staying at an official hotel, a status that granted us the coveted early admission. This perk, a mere 15 minutes of extra park time, sounds trivial, but in the economy of theme parks, it's like being handed the keys to the treasury. It whisked us through a security check that, I had learned through rigorous study, possessed the cheerful thoroughness of a state border crossing. My research had revealed a labyrinth of rules governing what one may or may not wheel, carry, or otherwise transport into this world of fantasy. The official literature has a certain flair for the dramatic, reading less like park guidelines and more like a treaty on contraband. Large suitcases are forbidden, which makes sense. Less obvious is the strict ban on drones, suggesting a recurring problem with amateur aerial photographers trying to get a bird's-eye view of Goofy's hat. The list of prohibited items escalates quickly from the expected, like knives, to the wildly specific, like high-pressure gas and radioactive materials, making you wonder what kind of vacation previous guests had been planning. The true artistry of the rulebook, however, lies in its food policy. You are discouraged from bringing a full meal, like a bento box. Simple snacks are fine. This creates a fascinating theological question for the security guards to ponder. At what point does a collection of snacks become a meal? Is a large sandwich a snack if you eat it over 3 hours? I imagine a stern official holding up my modest Ziploc bag. This rice ball displays a culinary ambition that clearly qualifies it as luncheon. To the designated picnic area with you. These areas, located conveniently outside the park, feel like a polite form of exile for the culinarily unprepared. My bag, a nondescript backpack, had been packed with the precision of a bomb disposal expert. It contained no flammable liquids, no wheeled shoes, and no tripods that could extend beyond head level, a rule clearly aimed at thwarting rogue giraffes with an interest in amateur filmmaking. Every item was regulation-sized and clearly non-threatening. We sat in the crisp, 68-degree air, a meteorological miracle given the forecast, feeling like the valedictorians of theme park preparedness. When the ropes finally dropped, our diligence paid off. That extra 15 minutes was gold. We glided through the gates and strolled onto our first ride with zero wait. There was no running, no frantic pushing, just the calm, smug satisfaction of a plan perfectly executed. We had studied the law, respected the process, and were now rewarded with a brief, shining moment of pure, frictionless fun. And in that quiet, empty park, surrounded by volcanoes and Venetian canals, I had to wonder, is there anything more magical than beating the system? Digital Dash, a frenetic fight for Fantasy Springs. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Sun Tzu. Having successfully navigated the pre-dawn rituals and bag check formalities, our grand Disney day was simmering nicely. That 15-minute early entry perk was no small thing. It was the golden ticket that bought us a patch of prime pavement near the entrance where we now sat, watching the sky brighten. The air was a perfect 68 degrees, a statistical anomaly in a country known for its humid summers. As the official park opening time struck, a quiet tension filled the air. There was no mad dash. Instead, 1,000 people stood up, ever so slowly, pulled out their phones, and began the day's first and most important ride, the Tokyo Disney Resort app. The new currency of happiness here isn't yen, it's a QR code. And the most valuable commodity in the entire park is the Disney Premier Access Pass for Anna and Elsa's Frozen Journey, a ride so popular that its virtual tickets evaporate faster than a snowflake in a furnace. My thumbs flew across my phone screen, a frantic digital ballet performed under the shadow of the park's giant globe-shaped fountain. I tapped, confirmed, and paid. A confirmation screen glowed back at me. I had done it. I had secured our passage to Arundel. I felt a surge of victory usually reserved for finding the last parking spot at the mall on Christmas Eve. With the frozen pass conquered, a 60-minute countdown began before I could purchase another. The digital clock was ticking. Now what? The app's map laid out my options like a general's battlefield. Soaring Fantastic Flight is a masterpiece, a must-do, but a quick check of its location revealed it to be in the Mediterranean harbour area, which, from my current position near the new Fantasy Springs, might as well have been in a different postal code. Securing a pass for soaring would mean committing to a cross-continental expedition later in the day. Was I here to get my steps in, or was I here to ride the rides? I looked at the cluster of new attractions right here in Fantasy Springs. After getting into this exclusive digital club, it seemed foolish to leave. The next logical targets were Rapunzel's Lantern Festival and Peter Pan's Neverland Adventure, both conveniently located just a stone's throw away from Elsa's Ice Palace. Sticking to Fantasy Springs meant I could conquer this whole new territory without ever having to chart a course through the rest of the park's sprawling geography. It was the path of least resistance, a strategy of concentrated force. The choice was clear. The epic journey to soaring would have to wait. Just as you start to feel like you've mastered this complex system of digital ticketing and strategic waiting, you learn that the rule book was just rewritten. Until recently, if you missed out on the paid Premier access, your backup plan was a free virtual queue called a standby pass. You'd get that on the app, and it would grant you entry to the land and a time to wait in the real line. As of April 2025, that's gone. The safety net has been removed. Now, if the Premier access for Frozen sells out before you can grab it, your only option is to walk over there and get in a line that will likely be long enough to have its own weather system. Simpler, yes, but also a lot more brutal. The strategy is now less about complex maneuvering and more about raw speed and a willingness to stand completely still for several hours. The only thing constant in life is change. Heraclitus. Immersive realism when theming nears the uncanny valley. Our early morning planning paid off. With the digital passes for Fantasy Springs secured on the app before most people had even scanned their tickets, we were free. Free to wander into the park's first grand illusion, a place they call Mediterranean Harbour. You step through the gates and are immediately swallowed by an Italian port town so perfect it's suspicious. It's Venice, but as if it had been built by a team of obsessive-compulsive Swiss watchmakers. The cobblestones are immaculate, the canals run with water clearer than my conscience, and not a single pigeon dares to deface the statues. It's a scrubbed, sanitized, hyper-real version of Italy that feels less like a tribute and more like a gentle threat to the original. Looming over this pristine European scene is, naturally, a massive, smoking volcano, because nothing says picturesque seaside village like an active stratovolcano. You can walk right up to it, and in a stroke of design genius, or perhaps geological confusion, you can walk INSIDE. The interior is not a magma chamber, but the set of a submarine adventure. Specifically, it seems to be a loving recreation of Jules Verne's world as imagined by Hollywood in 1954. This dedication to basing a flagship attraction on a movie that predates the moon landing is something to behold. It suggests either a profound respect for classic squid-based cinema or that the plans were drawn up decades ago and nobody had the heart to change them. From the mechanical squid, we made our way to the animated snowman. Our first paid-for, skip-the-line reservation was for the new Frozen ride. My son, who once revered Olaf with the fire of 1,000 suns, was unmoved. We tried to get him excited, but he stared at the singing animatronics with the COLD detachment of a film critic. Maybe it was the unnerving perfection of their movements, a smoothness that suggested they were powered by magic and small, silent servo motors. Or maybe, at the ripe old age of 12, he had simply evolved beyond the charms of talking snow. Sensing a dip in morale, we made a tactical decision to eat early, a move that saved us from the noontime human tide. We found a restaurant serving a Japanese take on Scandinavian food. Now, you might think paying theme park prices for food should result in a culinary revelation. The truth is, it's fancy cafeteria fare. It's food that tries very hard. Our meal was adequate in the way most Disney food is. It fills a hole and looks good on paper. Thankfully, the prices weren't as staggering as I remembered from a trip to one of the American parks, where a burger and fries cost roughly the same as a used car. The park tickets were reasonable, but the ride passes are where they get you. $10 a pop per person to jump a line adds up fast. You get one free pass an hour, but the good ones disappear with the speed of a politician's promise. Fed and watered, we ventured toward the Temple of the Crystal Skull. The Indiana Jones ride was genuinely cool, a jostling, chaotic romp through a cursed temple. The theming was brilliant, right up until you saw the main character. The animatronic Indiana Jones looked absolutely nothing like Harrison Ford. He had the hat and the whip, but the face was that of a generic, vaguely heroic mannequin. I couldn't help but picture a tense negotiation in a Burbank office, with Harrison Ford's agent sliding a number across the table so large that the Disney executives decided they'd rather just hire a handsome stranger. Oh, and I almost forgot. My son and I found a roller coaster with almost no line. It had a loop, a feature that typically announces a certain level of thrilling violence. This, however, was the most polite roller coaster I have ever been on. It did its loop with the gentle grace of a curtsy. We tried to get Mom to join, but she saw the look on our faces when we got off and wisely stood her ground. We had conquered the app, navigated the crowds, and ridden the rides. And as we walked off the world's most serene coaster, I had to wonder, was all that frantic early morning digital strategy worth it, just to get on this thing 5 minutes faster? Seven Seas Saga, the story of Sinbad's softer song. Every voyage is a new beginning. Sinbad the Sailor. Having just escaped a cursed temple with a man who was legally distinct from Harrison Ford, we left the jungles of Central America and walked directly into the Arabian Peninsula. The transition was as seamless as it was jarring. 1 minute you're dodging blow darts, the next you're in a bazaar so thoroughly realized it feels like the set of Aladdin after it won the lottery. The meticulous design we'd seen in the Italian port was back, here with domed roofs and tiled archways that looked suspiciously cleaner than any real-world equivalent. The illusion was so perfect, we almost weren't surprised to see Jafar holding court near a fountain. My son, who apparently has a soft spot for evil sorcerers with questionable facial hair, marched right up and shook his hand. It was a bizarre photo op. I stood there watching my child fraternize with a man whose primary resume entry is, attempted to seize absolute power via hypnosis and enslavement. And I thought, well, at least he's networking. After my son pledged his allegiance to the forces of darkness, we sought out the main attraction. This is where the meticulously crafted world began to fray at the edges of logic. The land was clearly inspired by Aladdin. Jasmine's flying carpets were spinning nearby. The theatre was showing a 3D movie starring the genie. But the grand headliner dark ride, the one housed in a magnificent palace, had nothing to do with a street rat. It was Sinbad's storybook voyage. This felt wrong. It was like going to a Star Wars land and finding the main ride is based on a minor character from the holiday special. Had Disney somehow lost the rights to its own film? Was Aladdin holding out for more money? Did he and the genie have a falling out over creative differences? The truth, it turns out, is less dramatic but far more interesting. The Imagineers weren't just building Aladdin Land, they were building the entire world of the 1001 Nights, the ancient collection of stories that gave us both characters. Sinbad, a hero in his own right, fit the park's overall theme of maritime exploration, so they built him a ride. The problem was, the first version was a bit of a dud. It opened in 2001 as a darker, more menacing adventure that apparently scared children more than it entertained them. Kids, it seems, prefer their boat rides without a lingering sense of their own mortality. The ride was a flop. So in 2007, they did the only sensible thing. They called Alan Menken, the man who wrote the music for Aladdin. They tasked him with writing a new, overwhelmingly cheerful song. They softened the story from a quest for treasure to a quest for friendship, and, in a classic move of corporate problem-solving, they added a cute tiger cub sidekick named Chandu. They solved the ride's core issue by drowning it in charm. What you're left with is not what you expect, but something strangely better. The ride isn't a rehash of a movie you've seen a dozen times. Instead, you glide on a boat through Sinbad's journey, following his encounters with giants, monkeys, and a musical sultan, all while that endlessly looping Menken song, Compass of Your Heart, drills its way into your soul. It's an earworm of relentless optimism, a 5-minute injection of pure, uncomplicated sincerity. It's a ride about the importance of friendship, guided by a tiger cub who looks like he was designed in a lab to sell plush toys. Wagtail's Wake, from creation to curry-flavored carts. My son's face was still a tight knot of confusion from shaking Jafar's hand as we left the Arabian coast. I think he was trying to figure out if being polite to a world-class villain earns you good karma or just puts you on a watch list. As he processed this moral dilemma, my attention was snagged by a little bird hopping near a storm drain. It was a fidgety thing, dressed in a sharp black and white suit like a tiny avian butler, constantly pumping its long tail up and down as if it were trying to start a lawnmower. This, I knew with the certainty of a man who spends too much time on the internet, was a Japanese wagtail. And it was not just some bird. I leaned down to my son. "You see that?" I said with the gravity of a tour guide at the pyramids. According to an old Ainu story, the world was once a muddy mess on a fish's back. So the head god sent that bird down. It stomped and flapped and pecked and basically beat the ground into submission until it became dry land. Japan exists because that bird had a fit. He gave me a look that suggested he was now more concerned about my sanity than he had been about Jafar's intentions. Having fully explained the bird's role in both creation and procreation, we found ourselves craving curry popcorn. I can report that it tastes exactly like you fear it might. For anyone wishing to replicate this flavor experience, you just douse perfectly good popcorn with a fistful of curry powder. It's a snack that asks the question, why? And then refuses to answer. From there, we drifted toward the Little Mermaid area before veering into the shadow of the Nautilus from 20,000 leagues under the sea. I bought a Japanese bao bun with a sausage inside, a decision I regretted with the first bite. It wasn't bad, just deeply uninteresting, like eating a cloud that was once in the same room as a hot dog. But we finally got some drinks, so the expedition wasn't a total loss. Our next attempt at fun was a ride called Aquatopia. The most fascinating part wasn't the ride itself, but the lack of a track. We were in little carts that behaved like self-driving bumper boats, fording through a few inches of water. They swerved and spun and sloshed, missing each other by inches, guided by a system of LiDAR detectors. They glided around with an eerie, silent purpose, their path dictated by invisible beams of light. It was an astonishing piece of modern engineering, a traffic system for glorified golf carts navigating a puddle by magic. In a park dedicated to fantasy, the most unbelievable thing we saw was a practical solution to a problem nobody has. Tokyo Treats, a traveler's tale of tastes and terrors. Having just witnessed boats navigate themselves with invisible lasers, a technology that would have gotten you burned at the stake a few centuries ago, our family's hive mind pivoted to a more pressing matter. Like the Japanese wagtail we saw earlier, which tirelessly pecks for insects, our attention was now singularly focused. The lukewarm sausage-filled bun from earlier was a distant, regrettable memory. A new mission objective had been uploaded to our collective consciousness. Find the best churros in the park. Our quest led us to the American waterfront, a section of the park so committed to early 20th century New York that I expected to see newsboys hawking papers about the Titanic. Here, the churro is not a simple matter of fried dough and cinnamon. It is a source of intense scholastic debate. We had heard whispers of the options, a litany of confectionery heresies. There was the classic Mickey-shaped cinnamon stick for traditionalists. There was a sweet soy sugar version for those who enjoy a bit of savory cognitive dissonance with their dessert. We even heard rumors of a savory potato churro served with a beef gravy, which sounds less like a snack and more like a culinary dare. It's a land of contrasts, where one can ride a futuristic driverless watercraft and then consume a snack that fundamentally misunderstands the laws of physics and good taste. Faced with this theological schism, we did what any sensible tourist would do. We chose the most decadent-sounding option. We procured some crème brûlée churros. The concept is genius. The execution is flawless. The exterior is a perfect crispy shell. The interior is a molten core of warm, vanilla-tinged custard. It tastes exactly like a crème brûlée, which is wonderful except for one glaring, soul-crushing flaw. It is not a churro. A churro without a heavy-handed dusting of cinnamon sugar is like a sky without stars or a politician without a convenient excuse. It's just fundamentally incomplete. The churro situation, while fascinating, felt like an intellectual victory, but a spiritual defeat. To cleanse our palates, we descended into the Earth's core. The journey to the center of the Earth ride was a roaring success. A proper coaster with a great monster and a thrilling launch out of the volcano. More importantly, it terrified my wife. There are few joys in this life as pure and uncomplicated as the sound of your own beloved shrieking in a moment of manufactured peril. It is a simple pleasure, immediate and deeply satisfying. It made me wonder. After navigating a world of gravy-doused potato sticks and custard-injected dough, was the oral evidence of a parent's momentary panic the most authentic thing we'd find all day? Duffy, the bear of happiness and the phenomenon of Tokyo DisneySea. My brain was still sorting through the elegant mechanics of Aquatopia's trackless ride system when I walked straight into a different kind of enigma. This one was less about localized positioning systems and more about an army of teddy bears. They were everywhere, propped on benches, nestled in strollers, held aloft for photos in front of a fake New England lighthouse. Now, you might be thinking a teddy bear is just a teddy bear, a simple bit of fluff for a child. You would be profoundly mistaken. In Tokyo DisneySea, a bear is not a toy. It's an icon. It turns out this isn't just any bear. This is Duffy. And the story of how he conquered Japan is a minor miracle of marketing. He first appeared in Florida in 2002, a generic park brand bear who was met with a collective shrug. He sat on American shelves, lost in a sea of established characters, another face in the plushy crowd. His reception, it is fair to say, was not overwhelming, so, like many a struggling artist, he moved to a foreign country to reinvent himself. In 2004, the bear was brought to Tokyo, given a new name, and most importantly, a story. The official account is that Minnie Mouse, seeing that her sailor husband Mickey was about to head off on a long voyage, sewed him a companion so he wouldn't get lonely. She presented it to him in a duffel bag, and Mickey, in a fit of staggering creativity, named him Duffy. This simple tale of affliction and emotional support baggage hit Japan like a meteor. The park's management, realizing they had captured lightning in a bottle, made him an exclusive celebrity. For years you could only buy him at one store in the park's Cape Cod-themed port. This created an artificial scarcity that turned a cute bear into a must-have cultural object. The popularity exploded. Soon Duffy needed a supporting cast, and an entire universe of friends was born. There's Shelley May, his lady bear friend, Gelatoni, an artist cat, Stella Lou, a ballerina rabbit, and a whole menagerie that keeps expanding. It's like the Avengers, but softer, and with more lucrative merchandising opportunities. Guests treat these bears not as souvenirs, but as cherished companions. They arrive at the park with entire wardrobes for them, changing their outfits to match the scenery. I saw one man carefully posing his bear, now dressed as a ship captain, on a railing overlooking the harbour, taking more photos of it than he did of his actual human family. Duffy's success is a unique case study in character development, showcasing how a simple, well-crafted story and a strong connection to a specific park's theme, combined with a cultural affinity for kawaii, cuteness, and collecting, can turn an ordinary plush bear into a massive, beloved franchise. Fuzzy friend sits still. He sees more of this whole park than I ever will. Subterranean suppers, savoring Magellan's secrets. Surviving a close encounter with a giant, shrieking lava centipede gives you a certain clarity. It sorts your priorities. It makes you realize that what you truly need in that moment is not more adventure, not more thrills, but a decent meal served on an actual plate. Having just been spit out of Mount Prometheus by a high-speed minecar, my wife looking like she'd seen the ghost of Jules Verne himself, we were in agreement. A curry-flavored popcorn snack was not going to restore our frayed nerves. We needed civilization, and we needed it now. We were going to Magellan's. Magellan's is located, with a sense of profound irony, at the base of the very same volcano we had just narrowly escaped. It's themed as the secret headquarters for the Society of Explorers and Adventurers, or SEA, a fictional organization that Disney has seeded throughout its parks for the benefit of nerds and the deeply observant. Pushing open the heavy doors felt like boarding a submarine. The clamour of the park vanished, replaced by a cool, hushed stillness that smelled of old books and roasted duck. The centerpiece of the main dining room is a colossal globe that rotates slowly and silently, as if charting the progress of expeditions that never were. We were led to a table under its massive shadow, feeling less like tourists and more like applicants seeking membership in a very exclusive and possibly imaginary club. The quiet in Magellan's is like the quiet of a deep cave, but with a much better wine list. This is fine dining, a multi-course fixed-price affair that serves primarily Western-style food. You almost forget you're in a theme park until you look down and remember you're wearing very practical walking shoes. While we could have opted for the Art Nouveau luxury of the SS Columbia or the waterfront charm of Ristorante di Canaletto, neither of those are tucked away inside a volcano, offering refuge from their own star attraction. It's a brilliant strategy. Terrify your customers, then sell them an elegant, expensive meal to help them recover. There is even a rumor of a dining room hidden behind a secret bookshelf, a prize for the truly fortunate or well-connected. We were not asked. The entire experience is a magnificent exercise in cognitive dissonance. We had traveled thousands of miles and paid a small fortune to stand in lines and get jostled by crowds, only to seek sanctuary in a place that pretended none of that existed. Here, in this explorer's sanctum, the only journey was the one from appetizer to dessert. Here, the only monster was the bill. As we finally stepped back out into the bright, noisy reality of the park, blinking against the sun, the contrast was jarring. We had just left the quietest, most civilized corner of Tokyo DisneySea, a calm port in a storm of manufactured joy, located deep in the belly of the beast. Timed tides, dueling the day's delays. After solving the complex culinary algebra required to dine at Magellan's, we faced a new, more daunting variable: time. At Tokyo DisneySea, time is not a river, it is a currency. And the exchange rate is brutal. The chief concern for any visitor is not cost or weather, but the eternal question that haunts the online forums, a question whispered with the same gravity as ancient philosophical inquiries: when do the lines go down? This is the park's central koan, its own riddle of the Sphinx. The answer, much like the plot of a Christopher Nolan film, is not simple. It bends to crowd levels, the day of the week, and the whims of a million other people who all inexplicably decided to ride the same fake submarine as you. To navigate this human tide, you must become a student of crowd dynamics, a sort of amateur physicist observing the flow of compressible fluids. The entire exercise feels like playing a real-time strategy game where the prize is not losing 4 hours of your life to get on a ride themed around a Pixar movie about toys. The day begins not with a gentle welcome, but with what park veterans call the early morning surge. This is a polite term for a human stampede. From opening until about 10 a.m., the lines for major attractions like soaring or anything in the new Fantasy Springs area don't just grow, they achieve vertical takeoff. People with happy entry from the hotels, a 15-minute head start that feels like being given a fighter jet in a horse race, hit the ground running. The rest of the public follows, a frantic wave of humanity trying to outrun the escalating wait times displayed on the official park app. This app is your new god. You will consult it more than you consult your own family. By late morning, the park hits its peak. The queues solidify into unmoving walls of people, their faces a mix of grim determination and the quiet resignation of someone who has accepted their fate. Around 1 p.m., a myth persists of an afternoon dip. This legendary lull, supposedly caused by people stopping for lunch, is the Loch Ness monster of theme park strategy. You hear tales of it, you might even see a blurry photo on a message board, but in reality the wait for Toy Story Mania might dip from 120 minutes to a brisk 110. It's less a dip and more a statistical wobble. My wife, I could tell, was yearning for this mythical dip. Not for the shorter lines, but for a simple, unspoken cessation of strategy. Her soul cried out for a moment to just sit on a bench, eat a churro, and not have me announce that the wait for 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea had dropped to a manageable 45 minutes. But victory waits for no one. The war against the clock required constant vigilance, a dedicated adherence to the data provided by our digital oracle, and the pre-trip research I'd conducted on websites like Thrill Data and Queue Times. Consulting these crowd calendars felt like preparing for D-Day, studying charts and tidal patterns to determine the optimal moment to storm the beaches of the American waterfront. It is in the evening, as families with small children begin their tactical retreat, that you see the first real signs of hope. From 6 p.m. onwards, the pressure begins to ease on some attractions. Less popular rides, like the deeply charming Sinbad's storybook voyage, become virtual walk-ons. However, the big-ticket rides with impressive nighttime views can hold strong, their lines populated by diehards determined to squeeze every last drop of magic from their day. The truest opportunity arrives in the final hour. This is the last gasp play for the dedicated few. As most guests drift towards the exit, distracted by souvenir shops and the logistics of getting back to their hotels, the lines for the most popular attractions can sometimes see a dramatic drop. Floating fleet, fitting friends on the festival flotilla. Napoleon famously said, "An army marches on its stomach." He was correct, but he overlooked the modern addendum. A family marches on a detailed minute-by-minute itinerary secured by a frantic series of in-app purchases. Having already survived the morning's digital scramble for passes, I learned that navigating the park's crowds required more than just an early start. It demanded a strategist's mind and the reflexes of a competitive gamer. The flow of people doesn't just dip at lunch, it shifts, creating brief, unpredictable windows of opportunity. Our next objective was Rapunzel's Lantern Festival, an attraction promising a romantic boat ride through a scene of floating lights. It's an idea sold on pure magic, but one that runs headfirst into the cold, unyielding wall of operational logistics. The fundamental problem, one that Disney Imagineers must have debated with the kind of seriousness usually reserved for international treaties, is that the boats hold 16 people. Not 15, not 17, 16. This becomes a fascinating piece of public theatre when a group of, say, 18 people arrives at the loading dock. I saw it happen. They had queued together, a sprawling clan celebrating something, only to be met by a staff member with a clipboard and the gentle but firm demeanour of an air traffic controller. The group was informed they would be split. There is no appeal. The math is absolute. This creates a deeply awkward social dilemma. A main vessel of 16 lucky souls and a sad little dinghy of 2 trailing behind like a footnote. You could try for 9 and 9, but that requires a level of coordination the United Nationals would envy. My son, oblivious to this sociological experiment, was focused only on the ride's tower. For me, the unspoken mission was to keep the day frictionless, to shield the family from the messy gears of the operation. This is the parent's secret quest in any theme park, to manufacture spontaneous joy through militant planning. The key for any large party, I realized, is surrendering to the app. You must link all tickets, designate a single fast-thumbed individual as your tribute, and buy the Premier Access passes the second they become available. It's less a vacation strategy and more a hostile takeover of your own leisure time. After securing our passes for the Frozen ride earlier, my screen was already primed. With our smaller group, we avoided the crisis of the split boat. I tapped through the purchase screens for Rapunzel, confirming our spot. Success. We had a time, a guaranteed entry, and a boat that would not require us to exile 2 of our own. The lantern-lit voyage through Rapunzel's story was secured, another battle won. Sea of Sleep, skipping the spectacle. It takes a special kind of dedication to shepherd a group large enough to require 2 separate boats through Rapunzel's lantern ride, and that dedication leaves a mark. By late afternoon, I was running on fumes and the dregs of a creme brulee churro. While shuffling along in a queue, I was goofing around with my son when he started punching me in the stomach. I puffed out my chest, a defensive posture I probably picked up from a nature documentary about silverback gorillas. "That feels like steel, doesn't it?" I asked. He paused, considered this deeply, and then, with the unflinching honesty of a 12-year-old, declared, "No. It feels like soup. Like I'm punching a Walmart bag full of soup." This less than flattering anatomical assessment came shortly before our final stop, Toy Story Midway Mania, a ride where you shoot at digital targets from a spinning car. It is an enterprise at which I naturally won. No, wait, my wife won. My memory of the event seems to have been selectively edited by my ego. With my glorious, or perhaps not so glorious, performance behind us, we faced a decision. Before us lay the supreme test of theme park endurance, the grand finale. The park puts on a spectacular show called Believe, Sea of Dreams, which the schedule claims happens nightly at 8:10 p.m. To get a decent view, however, one must apparently claim a piece of harbour-front property roughly 2 hours in advance, a form of high-stakes loitering we were not physically or spiritually equipped for. All I secretly wanted was to lie down on a horizontal surface and not move for several fiscal quarters. The alternative was a Mickey-shaped churro. We chose the churro. Now we are back at the hotel, the distant boom of someone else's magical evening faintly audible. Jet lag, even 2 days in, still has its claws in us. We are simply, utterly spent. The day's spoils sit on the nightstand, a half-eaten bag of snacks and a phone displaying our next challenge. Our escape to Okinawa is booked, but the process was a digital nightmare, a series of bizarre IT failures that suggested the airline's website was powered by a single exhausted hamster on a wheel. Hopefully, our passports are in order. And that brings us to the close of Chapter 5, By App and Appetite Alone, where a day defined by digital strategy and premier passes was ultimately decided by the simple need for rest. Next time, the focus shifts from theme park tactics to travel logistics as we navigate from Tokyo's airport to the roads and resorts of Okinawa. If you enjoyed this journey, the complete travelogue is available right now as a Kindle book on Amazon, Shinkansen and Sensibility. And if you want to come behind the scenes and get bonus content, you can join my community on Patreon. Until next time, this is the Rise the Limit.